This is Katharine and Dave here from Fantasy Fitnessing, and we are here to chat fantasy for week 2 of the 2022 semifinals. So our salary cap game's up, draft leagues are open, preview shows have been dropped. They're on the Clydesdale Media YouTube and our podcast, so check them out. Instagram has some sort of slides from those if you're just listening to the podcast and want to sort of look back at them. Our Instagram is at Fantasy Fitnessing. And yeah, we're here to talk fantasy for week 2. But first, we're going to kind of loop back on what happened in week 1.
Yeah, so looking back at week 1, so just wanted to give a shout out to our podium winners and recipients of some Gooder sunglasses here. So first place, we had Pay the Man. He had a team of Cole Grayshaber, Ricky Garrard, Mortitz, Vibig, Tia Claire Toomey Orr, Karen Freyova, and Olivia Sulik. So ended up winning by 27 points over Yessi Wad. Yessi Wad, shout out to him. He's the only person who picked Enrico Zioni, who made it to the games out of the Lowlands Throwdown. And in third place, William Hall, 2016. So congrats to them. Interesting about them, all three of them had Mortis Fiebig on their team. So clearly he was the key to finishing up on the podium this year, or this week, I should say. And then shout out to all our friends on the media leaderboard. So Yessi Wad, also a member of our media board. He does a lot of coverage of CrossFit and athletes focused in Greece. So he won that one as well. Again, kind of by a long shot over. I was in second and you were in third. And then kind of bringing up was the Clydesdale media team and Coffee Pods and Wads. So again, interesting to follow around, see what people with kind of a more focused ear on the sport think there. So, but again, yeah, salary cap, get in to it this week.
Yeah, and one thing on that media leaderboard, if you are listening to this and follow us and you have like a podcast, YouTube channel, something that you're covering like a part of the elite individual kind of sport, shoot us like a DM on Instagram and we will get you added to that media leaderboard as well, because there's a lot of stuff out there. It's impossible to follow everybody, but so if you are playing our games and you have stuff, let us know and we'll get you on that leaderboard too.
And if you listen to a podcast who's not on that list, you should shoot them a DM and tell them to sign up, see how they do.
Yes, that too, for sure. And then tell them to play and tell them to get them on the leaderboard. Let's all play together. All right, so that was sort of a look back at the salary cap winners. And then how did that Clydesdale Media Draft League go?
Yeah, so the Clydesdale Media Draft League, we did a live draft on YouTube last week with the draft games in Fantasy Fitnessing. So kind of a humble brag here. I finished in first. My team was Laura Horvath, Haley Adams, Ellie Turner, BKG, Jay Crouch, Sam Stewart. So I finished just under 100 points ahead of Team Ready, or Amy from the Clydesdale Fitness and Friends show, who was in second. That league. I think we'll share the teams last week, and we'll show the leaderboard there. But again, fun way to get involved. Was happy with how my team did. I think Sam Stewart was a bit of a surprise for everybody, just how he finished up this past weekend. But it worked out well.
Yeah, I think when I posted of like who people thought was going to win, multiple people selected your team. Yeah. They also thought you were going to win. So it played out how everybody thought.
Yes. I also picked with less heart than they did. They had soft spots for all the people they interview, which I don't have that. So.
Yeah, you're a little bit outside the relationships with athletes kind of thing. We just look at stats. All right. So week 1 is done. On to the week 2 salary cap game. What kind of strategy, what are you looking at for that?
Yeah, so week 2, it's going to be a bit different. One, we only have 2 semifinals to choose from, so just the pool of athletes is going to be a bit different. And just one of them is one of the big events, Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge, with the second one being kind of a smaller event with the Fittest in Cape Town. So if you look back to our preview shows, I guess kind of overall field strength that you see is that the Fittest in Cape Town's going to be generally weaker than what you see in at the MACC, but I guess in terms of fantasy, that really isn't going to play into a factor of this, just because they're individual competition. So people in the Fittest in Cape Town compete against them, Fittest or at MACC compete against them. So each one has 600 points available in each for the winners. So you don't have to worry about, choosing between one event and another that way. But, looking at it this week, took a look at average event finish. Really, average event finish, the better average event finish, the more points they score. The more points they score, the better your fantasy team does, which is really what we're going for here. And so I was looking back to last year and actually was surprised by the results. So for this week, kind of looking at the top end athletes that we see, looking at, again, top 3 finishers from last year in Fittest in Cape Town. So you had Michelle Bassinet finished first on the women's side. Her average event finish was 3.3. Dina Swift was second at Fittest. Her average finish was 4.4. And Michelle Morand was third and her average event finish was 8.4. So I was really trying to think, and just looking at the depth of fields, I really expected Fittest to be significantly higher in terms of average event finish, just because the competition is a little bit thinner. But looking back to last year's Granite field, which I think is really going to be more comparable than last year's MACC, just because MACC had like Tia and Brooke Wells and Haley Adams, so it was super top heavy. But looking at Granite, Ariel Lowen, who won Granite, her average event finish was 4.3. Mal O'Brien was 4.4, and Emma Carey is 6.1. So Lowen and Bassinet's event finish was one spot higher than Lowen's. Second place, Swift and O'Brien were exactly the same. And then the third place finisher, Emma Carey, was about average 2 spots higher than Michelle Moran did in Fittest in Cape Town. And then, so looking at that, I would probably, again, try to focus on the top 2 athletes on the women's side. Probably doesn't make a difference between who you pick. You have who is it, Brooke Wells and Danielle Brandon in MACC, who are probably going to be the sure things when you look at that women's field. And after that, it gets a little, iffy of who's going to make it. Bailey Royale probably is going to be your third. I think she's relatively safe at this point. But then after that, you got, Sydney McCallison, who also went to the games last year. But then it's going to be probably pretty iffy of who will be next at this point, which will be fun from a fan standpoint, but makes it tricky from a fantasy standpoint. So would really want to focus on those top athletes in either one, whether you go Danielle Brandon or Brooke Wells. And I think Brooke Wells probably is the favorite to win the event, but she also hasn't been on the competition floor since her elbow injury last year. So Danielle Brandon's probably your for sure thing, where Brooke Wells probably has higher upside. And then on Fittest, I think really Michelle Bassinet is the favorite leading into it, although she didn't win quarterfinals. I think Michelle Moran won quarterfinals, but it's probably likely that Michelle Bassinet will finish the top there. So really, if you're looking for one of those athletes, I don't think there is a big difference between either choosing Fittest in Cape Town or at MACC. On the men's side, however, I think there is a difference there. So looking back to last year's Fittest, Jason Smith won. His average event finish was 2.1. Duvenage, can't remember his first name off the top of my head. His average finished was 3.4. And then in third place, AJ Visor, his average event finish was 7.4. So again, comparing that to Granite last year, you had Saxon Padenchik, who won, had an average event finish of 5.3. Chandler Smith, average event finish 6.4. And then Tim Paulson was 6.9. So again, looking at those top 2, there you do see a difference. You have, Smith or the first 2 finishers at Fittest averaging about 3 places higher per event than the guys at Granite, which is going to translate into 12 points an event, or 72 points over the course of the competition. So I think there is some room there if you want to take, like, Jason Smith is probably going to finish first or second there with Duvenage. So I think those guys are actually really safe bets to build your team around, just because their score is likely going to be a lot higher than the men on the Granite side. And then, I know, at MACC, I should say. And then the guys at MACC this year, it's going to be a slugfest, because you got Saxon Panchik, Dallin Pepper, Noah Olson, and Cole Sager. So all four of those guys have capabilities of winning this event, which, it's going to be super fun to watch, but could be kind of a toss-up in terms of who scores points. Like, it could be just like the men's field at Torian this past week, where you didn't know who was going to win an event, but it was going to be tough. So I would expect that to be what's there. So again, to kind of bring this back, in terms of building your rosters, I think you're safe for Brandon Brookwells or Michelle Bassinet on the women's side. But if you are looking to pick up those top athletes on the men's side, I would pick out of the Fittest Cape Town with Smith and Duvenage, just because I think they're going to be more for sure things and score higher on the men's side that way.
So pretty much the plan for this week would to be more like aces and wild cards kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think your aces and wild cards will be your better bet. The balance approach, it worked well last week just because there was so many different athletes available, but it's really going to be a hard guess to figure out who wins those positions. You see the women's side at MACC, you got outside those top two, I think it will be up in the air of who finishes. Same, and then the men's side, the top four are pretty set, but after that, who knows? And then Fittest in Cape Town, similar type of thing. We just know less about those athletes, unfortunately, so it's going to be tougher to kind of have those for sure, fourth or fifth place finishes that we had this past week.
Yeah, true. All right, so that is salary cap strategy. Now, draft strategy.
Yeah, draft strategy is going to be, along those same lines. I would probably, if I was going to do a draft today, surprisingly, Jason Smith would probably be the top pick. And then from there, you could either go, Ruin Duvenage or Daniel Brandon, Brookwells, Michelle Bassinet. So probably would want to have one of those five within the first round. And then from there, again, I think it probably drops off a bit. I probably would then focus on the rest of the men's field at MACC, or at least those other four guys, to get one of Olson, Pepper, or Saxon. So.
Yeah, based on how Sprague did last week, I'd say Pepper probably a solid pick this week.
Yeah, I think, with that brute strength crew, that is a good point. That James Sprague was probably kind of the litmus test for those guys. So to see him probably overachieve at Syndicate means that, Pepper and Toon are probably good bets for the rest of the semifinals.
Yeah. Sweet. So that is kind of it for our fantasy chat for week 2. Get your salary cap teams in at fantasyfitnessing.com and get some buddies together and get a little draft going. You can kind of, in a way, get more of the bigger name athletes doing a draft. You don't kind of have to go as deep as the salary cap game makes you go. So, anything else, Dave?
Yeah, no, again, draft has some, fun advantages, because there's always, every athlete can only be picked once. So it gives you a chance to get your favorites, but it also gives you an opportunity to cheer for some other athletes, because there's, nothing like watching a final heat and knowing that, if Pepper beats Cole Sager, you get bragging rights over your betties. So make sure you get in there and have some fun.
Sounds good. So that is it from us for week 2, and we will see you on the leaderboard.